Hello and welcome back to another summary video for Final Fantasy XIV, this time for Letter from a Producer Live Part 75. This is the second part of our 6.3 preview before its release. It starts off then with the 6.3 trailer, which I'm not going to go into too much detail here because it's full of absolute story spoilers just everywhere, so I'll let you watch that at your own discretion. But a couple of slides from this, it looks absolutely fantastic, and the soundtrack sounds just, well, it's freaking amazing by Masayoshi Soken as usual. Then next they reveal at the end of the trailer the next ultimate to be Omega, the Omega Protocol. We'll look at that in this video in a little bit. Links are then on screen for that trailer in your own language, so if you want to go and look at those, just simply type in those extensions or go on the Final Fantasy XIV official YouTube channel. Yoshi P mentions how close they were to not finishing 6.3 in time with all of the producer checks and also arranging an in-real-life concert. But apart from that, 6.3 is actually on schedule, and 6.3 then releases on the 10th of January 2023. So the 10th of January is when the patch is coming out, which is earlier than most people predicted. We thought it would be another week on top of that. But yes, the second week of January, as most people probably imagined. So first, a recap of what's to come in 6.3. Let's go over this quickly. Obviously, there's new MSQ storyline, new side quests, including Tataru's Grand Endeavors, which also has a requirement now to have completed the Four Lords series of quests back in Stormblood, so make sure you do those. The Tales of Newfound Adventure continues, as well as Hildebrand quests, which are back in 6.35. That also includes new weapon stages for the Hildebrand relics in 6.35 as well. The tribal quest for the Leporites, which is going to be a crafting tribe, will also be in 6.35, and that has a requirement as well. It says you must complete Endwalker's MSQ and the Mare Lamentorum side quest series, starting with the quest Name That Way, to be able to actually unlock that on the first day of the patch, so make sure you do that side quest. They show a screenshot of the Leporite quest hub, and it's actually featured quite heavily in the trailer as well. There's a picture of them having a party with what looks like a DJ. Never trust a Leporite to DJ, that sounds terrible. As part of the MSQ, you also have access to the new dungeon Lapis Manalis. We've looked at this before with the special site art. Yoshi P says you can use Zero in the duty support system for this dungeon. There's also a new trial they don't want to show us at the moment, and they don't want to spoil that, so we'll get that on the patch day. Also, there's a new Unreal trial version of Sophia, which is sure to tip the balance in favor of this patch. I'm sorry, that's terrible. The new Alliance raid comes out in 6.3, which we also saw a lot of in that trailer. Euphrosyne, or however you pronounce that. There's more of that in a moment. The next ultimate in 6.31 then is called the Omega Protocol Ultimate, which releases, of course, 2 weeks after 6.3 and requires people to have completed the 8th Circle of Abyssos on Savage difficulty, which is usually required for the 4th fight of the previous Savage. The next deep dungeon, Eureka Orthos, is also in patch 6.35, and this requires players to have first completed the Endwalker MSQ, as well as progress to floor 50 at least of the Palace of the Dead. The duty support system, which is also where you can do dungeons with NPC AI to help you clear MSQ content, also gets the rest of Heavensward dungeons added to it. This includes Great Gooble Library, Saw Kai, Zelfatol, Etherical Research Facility, the Anti-Tower, and Baelsa's Wall. This should cover everything from the free trial, says Yoshi P, if the free trial doesn't get extended, end quote. He also says, now we're only missing 4.x since we added a trust system in 5.x, end quote. So presumably that will be their next focus going forward. Job adjustments in 6.3 then. There will be a considerable amount of those, and indeed there'll be a lot for Paladin, but they didn't want to go into too much detail in this live letter. In fact, we'll talk about the Paladin ones in just a second. PvP updates include Season 5 of Ranked and Series 3 of the PvP Normal, beginning the new arena. Obviously that's the new one, the Clockwork Castle Town, which is kind of like a Kagane market, an indoor market sort of area. Very cool stuff. Crafter and Gatherer updates. This includes tool enhancement quests called the Splendorous Tools. This also comes in 6.35, has its own requirements to have completed Endwalker MSQ like everything else, and the Crystalline Mean quest from Stormblood. This also requires the unlocking of the Boutique of Splendors with Moen in Yulmore as well. So if you want to get the new tools, that's what you have to do. There's going to be a new custom delivery client on Andon is the name of that character. Presumably there's something to do with them turning back into a human. I can't remember who that NPC is off the top of my head, though. Primary fishing locations, preferred bait, and additional conditions are added to the fish guide finally, and a new spear fishing location is added to Upper Lenosha, if I could speak properly today. So that's interesting. Then 6.3 also features a bunch of new Island Sanctuary updates. This includes new ranks, vision quests, item rewards, materials, crops, animals, handicraft structures, improved workshop interfaces, and those include, as you can see, the ability to filter by various criteria simultaneously, and the ability to sort each category in ascending and descending order, and view factors like popularity and the supply while you're actually setting your agenda, which is kind of one of the nicest quality of life changes I've seen. There will also be options to collect all available for both your crops and your animals. Animals under care will also be eligible for release upon the capture of another animal, so you no longer have to release one before you can actually capture one. That's good. There's the ability to save Orchestrion tracks. Island visitors also get to hear those Orchestrions, and notifications on visitors' arrival will now be shown on the island. Treasure hunt maps get updates with a new dungeon known as the Shifting Gymnasium Aganon. This has portals via new maps that are obtainable and usable in the Elpis zone. The Gold Saucer gets a new Leap of Faith course called Self-Step. That's interesting. Housing gets updates in this patch with 6 regular wards and 6 subdivisions added. This is 1,800 plots per world added. So, yeah. Those will be available through the lottery system if you want to get a house, and other restrictions are shown here. There are a few other restrictions. The UI improvements in 6.3 feature damage numbers now specifying what damage type is actually incoming. This is both shown in flying text as well as in the battle log itself, so you know what killed you. As well as remaining time for debuffs and buffs shown on your party list now, making mechanics like Cahexia much easier. In Savage. Yoshi P says you can enable and disable whether the buffs in your party list show the timers or not. The default setting is on, enabled, and you will have to turn it off manually if this is disturbing you or if you start experiencing performance issues. Good to know, at least. The MISC updates then include a new UI theme, which is called the Clear Blue theme. We'll show that off in a bit. Portraits now show during the Duty Finder. This only shows party member portraits during your Alliance raids and not the Alliance raid portraits. The expansion of available activities you can do with fashion accessories. Yoshi P says here, and I quote, "I might have been unclear last time during the last live letter. The expansion of available activities might have been taken as adding new emotes during the use of fashion accessories, but it is actually things like using a mount whilst having an umbrella out, and once you get off the mount it automatically uses the umbrella again," end quote. So there we go. That's the sort of clarification we'd love to see more of. Amazing stuff. The ability to cast glamours and dye retainer equipment without removing it, as well as the ability to cast glamours on your own equipment directly from your retainer's inventory, and the ability to filter newly added items at sundry Splendor vendors. Very nice quality of life changes. You will have the ability to automatically open umbrellas when rain is detected in game. That's awesome. Yoshi P says, "We had a discussion in the team whether to add this for snow as well. We might add this in the future, but not now," end quote. The ability to collectively entrust duplicates of stackable items to your retainer, and the ability to export portraits editor to Adventurer Plate and vice versa. Those are 2 new features. We'll look at those in a bit as well. Next on to the job adjustments, or I should say for Paladin adjustments. This isn't all of them. The patch notes are going to be absolutely enormous for all of the jobs, but this is basically what they've kind of gone for Paladin. So the significant adjustments extending to action rotations. Yoshi P says, and I quote, "Making bigger adjustments changed the rotation. The objective of these adjustments was to improve the ability to deal burst damage by adjusting action efficiency and rotations, to improve versatility by decreasing reliance on damage over time." Yoshi P says, "Paladin has been a job that was weak in burst output compared to other tanks it was lacking behind." End quote. They're aiming to improve the usability of certain defensive abilities. Yoshi P says the impact the dot damage had was too high. There are a lot of instances with bosses becoming untargetable. Dot damage also didn't work well with burst output. End quote. The rotations have been shortened to accommodate high-powered actions. Damage over time effects for Goring Blade and Blade of Valor was removed, and their potency has been adjusted accordingly. Divine Might is now applied after weapon skill combos, allowing for an enhanced Holy Spirit to be executed once without casting. Holy Sheltron's effect has been changed to reduce damage taken, thereby enhancing defensive capabilities against damage over time. The previously removed Bulwark ability has been revamped and reintroduced to the game, offering increased defensive capability. The utility of several other actions and combos have also been adjusted. They'll share much more of this in the patch notes for 6.3, along with all of the other jobs. Now on to Crystalline Conflict and PvP updates. Firstly, they want to show off the new arena in-game, which looks really cool. It's like in this indoor sort of Kagane area. The environmental damage is also present, like in a lot of the other places. These are like spinning mats, which do damage to you if you stand on them. Yoshi P says, "We changed the registration of picking up items in the arena to be faster. It used to be a little bit slow. There were also NPC creatures walking around that when they stop, they also do AoEs to avoid, which I noticed. A little more tame than the volcanic stage, I think you'll agree, but things are still there to avoid." Yoshi P says, Kageyama drops these limit break packs, these coins on the floor that generate LB. It only happens a few times during a match, so that's those coins. So that's the extra gimmick inside this map. Next, they show off a tie-dye outfit glamour, randomly shown, no source was given, which is pretty nice. And then they show the PvP series reward armor. So we're getting ultimately another armor again. It looks absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to get my hands on that armor. It looks so cool. I can't wait to see how it dies as well. Now Yoshi P goes into the game and shows us the new Alliance raid. This also demonstrates the new clear blue UI mode, as you can see here. The raid starts in the golden fields you see here, and you've probably seen in the trailer and the previous art for this. Very pretty rolling golden hills. A long road winds up this hill towards these floating trees in the distance, to which the land raises up around you suddenly. I have no idea what Graha is doing here, but Yoshi P takes a good moment to laugh at him. Maybe he's taking pictures or something, I have no idea. The place looks great, and I'm looking forward to this for sure. Foxconn says during the PD check, we'll have to find people in our team who haven't done the content. We can't have the developer teams because they have designed the fights, so that can be the community team. This time I was part of it. I didn't have the luxury to pay attention to the background or the music because I needed to pay so much attention to the fights, end quote. Excellent stuff. It's good to hear that it's still as fun as the previous one. I think it's a great Alliance series. First then, let's look at the Alliance raid armor. In concept image, we've got a tank first, which looks pretty cool. We've got maiming. I really like the maiming one, actually. It looks really cool. Then we got a melee outfit. Then we've got the ranged outfit. Then we've got ninja, which, yeah, looks like ninja. And then we've got healers, which I'm not a massive fan of, personally. And then the caster gear. So that's what that stuff looks like from the Alliance raid. Yoshi P says, and I quote, "I will say it now, but the third boss was really fun. The feeling of accomplishment during one specific mechanic, especially as a black mage, was really good," end quote. So does that mean that there's potentially a lot of movement involved with that, or what? We'll have to wait and see. They go for a break now, and when they're back, they go straight into more in-game stuff. And now we're going to look at the Omega Protocol Ultimate. They show the intro cutscene to this and the Omega fight itself, just a few seconds of that. It's got a death wall around the corners of the room, this big circle, and the arena is quite small. Yoshi P says, everything will be Omega. He says, you will find out what that means. Everything Omega has seen and experienced will be thrown at you. You saw Omega M and F during the trailer. Where are they? Yoshi P then demonstrates a few more seconds of a fight by putting cheats on so that he can't die, which looks crazy. Foxconn says, a tether that looked like it needed to be picked up there. Yoshi P says, we think of DSR as the hardest ultimate, and we tried not to make it more difficult, but the direction and design is different, so it will depend on personal feeling, but don't expect higher difficulty than DSR. Adjustments and checks are finished. It will be released 2 weeks after 6.3. The mechanic everyone loves, he says, patch, is turned into something crazy. We hope you enjoy, end quote. I can't wait to watch that. I mean, I never get to do it myself. Sadly, I don't have a group for that, but it is fascinating to watch the world first. I can't wait to see what they do with this fight. It's one of my favorite tiers, actually. Okay, now a look at the new treasure map dungeon in the game. This is the Shifting Gymnasium of Aganon. If you've ever seen any of the shifting stuff, like the Shifting Dungeons of Ligaia, it's the same principle as before with the spinning room, and you spin this thing and different outcomes that you land on based on your own luck spawn things, so be that a boss or you actually getting thrown out with an Atomos. After defeating a boss, you spin again, get loot and so on, until you go to the last section or you get thrown out. Here's a new glamour from the treasure maps that Yoshi P shows off, probably made from the materials you actually get in there, but that's not confirmed. Yoshi P says, just like the glam we showed earlier, these are not gender locked, end quote. Very cool stuff to see. I like more gender unlocked items. Next, we get to see the new leap of faith jump in the game, which Yoshi P fails a lot of times. It's crazy. Which is the set in the Sylphlands, as you can see, higher atop the trees. And you kind of go upwards. It looks very impressive. They show how the lighting and weather actually changes as you go higher up. These like floating mushrooms and branches. Very, very weird stuff. I love it. Can't wait for that. Now the deep dungeon, a first look at that. They recap exactly what a deep dungeon is. I'm not going to bore you here. It mentions how you unlock it, as well as that you have to be level 81 or higher to enter. You can enter solo or up to 4 players. And they put a guide on the lodestone if you need more help about deep dungeons and what they are and stuff. You unlock the new deep dungeon then from an NPC called Ko Rabanta in Mordona. With the addition of Eureka Orthos, the previous quests associated with Ko Rabanta, but I Hardly Know Her, I think is the name of one of them, and the Gift of the Archmagus, will both of those be removed. Those were like weekly quests that you could do for Crystal Tower to get extra mats. Yoshi B says, we don't need those quests anymore, but we like the NPC, so we're giving them a new duty, end quote. Interesting stuff. In-game footage time. As per usual, there are chests with Pomandas in them, and you clear enemies to progress and unlock that key icon to unlock the teleporter. Keep going up the floors, clear bosses, then progress even further. The new features for this deep dungeon include new items. Here is a boss, as you can see. This one was shown actually in a trailer, so there's not really much to spoil. There's lots of AoEs to avoid, timed-based ones and proximity-based ones. Yoshi P says you might enjoy extra bits here and there on Allagan lore, end quote. This is actually because we're located inside the Crystal Tower for this deep dungeon. Now they show us items. One turns you into a dreadnought here, similar to the old demon one, which lets you do amazing damage for a limited time. The new Demi-Clone feature is the replacement of the Primal summons. When you actually use these, or at least the one we were shown, it summoned an NPC that followed you around, presumably for a limited time, and does damage to enemies that you pull, like a companion. That's really nice to have. Item rewards from here then in a deep dungeon. There's quite a few of them, but they specifically show off a brand new hairstyle here, which it's not my cup of tea, but I'm sure some people will love that. Yoshi P now shows off some mounts, since he uses the excuses already in the game, so he might as well. First is one called Pinky. This is actually the reward from the Laporit tribes, which is a flying pink elephant with a Laporit mask on the front. Need I say any more? It's fantastic. Then they show off a robot that transforms into this like flying airship robot thing. Very cool. I don't know where that's from. A golden sheep that drips gill that when you move or fly around. This is apparently another gill sync mount like the Mikoshi before. And there's also this robot gorilla that seemingly drops coins out of the rocket engines and things. Probably another gill sync. I have no idea. And then they show an airship mount. This has got to be one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. I can't wait for that. A flying alligator mount. Oh my god, that has to be Island Sanctuary. And there's a flying green orb, which is very similar to the other ones. And Yoshi P says there is a lot more than what he showed today as well. So lots and lots of things to collect. Now they show the UI changes. Yoshi P says, I will show what I meant with giving stacks of items to a retainer. There is actually a button on the bottom left of a retainer inventory. If you press that, it will show the items that you have in your inventory and that are on the retainer that are stackable. You can untick items. It will transfer those items onto the retainer. It only took us 10 years to add this feature, end quote. Better late than never. So now you can, not individually confirm stacks one at a time. Now you can just let it do it for you. Perfect stuff. I love that quality of life. New housing items and minions and all that stuff time. This new house exterior is something they're very proud of, which is in the style of a Japanese onsen, which is obviously a hot spring for people who don't know what an onsen is. Looks absolutely awesome. Yoshi P says, of course there is an onsen, and of course you can go into it, end quote. They show some housing items as well after this, including these new windows, which look pretty cool. And a water partition, so you can have water as a partition in your building. So if you've always wanted to make a waterfall or something and you've tried to use showers and things, you don't have to worry with that anymore. You can have a literal wall of water you can move around. Very cool stuff. Next, they show some outdoor items, which is a little fountain and like a shopping stall or something like that. I'm not really sure what that is, like a shopping cart. Very cool stuff. Now we've got some minions. We've got a corgi. I love the corgi. Very cool stuff. Then we have a dinosaur that looks like some kind of blue plesiosaur thing. Very cool. Then we've got Doom Train, which is awesome. I don't know where you get that, but I need it. We've got the Finding Way minion, which hopefully is from the new Tribal Quests. We've got a robot Mandragora, which presumably is from a deep dungeon because it kind of looks like that kind of Allagan design. And Yoshi P says there is a new minion of a character that got requested a lot, which I didn't put on the list here, which is the Automaton Mama, which is from Nier, obviously, which is the floating ghost there. Very cool stuff. And that's pretty much the main pieces of information from this live letter. A lot of the other stuff is we're going to have to wait and see in the game. Very cool stuff. Now we've got some announcements. So there's a Nier Reincarnation event coming. It's very unclear what this means, if this is in-game for 14 or not. There's very few details given, so hopefully they elaborate on that in the future. A Mahjong broadcast by the dev team gets a date, which is always fun to watch. The 10th anniversary since A Realm Reborn celebrations are here, starting in 2023, and Yoshi P says we're doing a lot of things for the 10th anniversary in 2023, end quote. So that's going to be really cool. I can't wait to see what they do. A limited time pop-up shop for 14 will be open in Osaka, Japan, with exclusive stuff. So if you're in Japan, you can check that out. These like tins with cool designs on them to keep things in. I think it's supposed to be moisturizer or something. There's a Crystalline Conflict PvP tournament for Japan community only, which is taking place on the 23rd of December. All of those matches will be streamed on Twitch. That's really cool. They will have details on the Japanese Lodestone. The Eorzean Symphony Volume 3 Blu-ray will be on sale soon, coming out in May next year, featuring some amazing music, as well as 2 in-game orchestrion roles, which are To the Edge and Flow orchestral versions, which is going to be cool to have. They announce an orchestral concert for both the USA and UK in London. The dates are on screen for October, which is obviously the day before FanFest, which is awesome. They'll put up more details on the Lodestone for those events soon, and obviously information on how to buy tickets and stuff. Yoshi P says, and I quote, "We got requests to have these concerts outside of Japan, and we tried. We can finally make it happen," which is awesome stuff. FanFest Japan gets its venue announced, and finally a date, which will be in the Tokyo Dome in 2024. Very cool stuff. The Tokyo Dome is enormous. I can't wait to see what that's like. The housing demolition timer is returning. There are more details on the Lodestone about this, so definitely check up on that. They are actually hiring at Square Enix. The QR code on screen takes you to a job page. So if you're an American citizen and have a marketing manager background, you might want to give that a go. Heaven's Turn returns on December the 31st. I did a video on that today as well, which is a really cool glamour set as a reward. Don't want to miss that one. The 6.3 notes will be read by Yoshi P and Foxclon on the 9th of January and broadcast, if you want to watch that live, the day before the patch. And they say here specifically that the maintenance is not 24 hours this time, so that's cool to know. Yoshi P rightfully slips in the release info and pre-order details for Final Fantasy XVI, which is a PS5 exclusive game. I cannot wait for that game personally. It looks amazing. They mention how the PS5 supply in Japan is affected, and there are also links to news articles to read more here. And that's pretty much it for Live Letter Part 75, a roller coaster of recap, new information, and amazing things to look forward to. Hopefully this video was better than you sitting there and watching it for hours yourself, with all of the extra information we cut out that wasn't interesting. Let me know what you are most excited for in the patch. I know for certain I'm excited for the Alliance raid and probably the Deep Dungeon most of all. Have a great Christmas, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.